Chase watched the lady's actions and chuckled. He didn't plan to stop her. He crossed his arms and smiled at her. At the same time, the security guards behind him were getting closer and closer. "Take him down!" she shouted. Then she took out her phone and began dialing a number. The security guards behind Chase was waving his baton and rushing toward Chase with a ferocious look on his face. Celia and the others who had been standing on the outskirts behind Chase did not want anything to happen to him. With a cold snort, Chase took a long look at the lady. Then, in a flash, he lunged at the security guards. After a series of loud noises, they were all knocked down to the ground by Chase. Then the shouts of pain began. It was a scene that was impossibly shocking in the eyes of the bystanders. No wonder he dared to be so impolite to her. He has some skills. What's the use of having skills? No matter how good they are, when her husband comes, won't it all be in vain? It's so reckless. Although what she said was awful, in Fairfield, anyone who knows a Rothman can basically do whatever they want. This guy is going to be in big trouble. A series of whispers could be heard. Most of the people around were not optimistic about Chase, and their expressions were ones of sympathy. Celia and Brooke laughed lightly when they heard their words. These people didn't know who Chase was. If they knew, they would be scared to death. After Chase easily took care of the security guards, he looked up at the lady. She met Chase's eyes and was astonished. She shouted, "Don't come over here. I already called my husband. He'll be here soon. And when he sees you, you'll be dead for sure. You should have taken the opportunity I gave you. I'll make you beg for forgiveness later." Although she looked scared, she continued to threaten Chase with her words. Chase chuckled and stopped walking toward her. Judging from her calm look, she must have used her status to pressure others in the city for support. He knew being a Rothman was akin to being a heavenly being in the city. It wasn't something he could change, but he wouldn't use his status to bully the common people of Fairfield. It didn't matter if he was a Rothman or someone of status. Chase didn't need to care about it every time he thought of it. This gave Chase an idea. The mocking smile on his face grew broader. "Didn't you just say your husband knows someone of the Rothman family? I happen to know them too. Now I'm starting to feel curious about your husband. I wonder what makes you guys so sure of yourselves." The lady was stunned when she heard Chase's words. They were the same ones she had used to threaten others on countless occasions. She didn't expect someone to use them against her today. Immediately, a thick anger emerged on her face, and she said to Chase in retort, "You think you know any of the Rothmans? Let me tell you something. My husband knows many of them, some of who are very important. Since you are so proud of yourself, maybe you need some humbling today. Something new for a change." The lady harumphed coldly and straightened her figure. Just as the two sides gradually began to calm down, a new shout was heard approaching the area. "Who the hell dares mess with my wife and my boys? This is my mall." The crowd turned their heads and opened up a path for the approaching voice. A middle-aged man walked in with a snarl on his lips, followed by 7 or 8 strong men, bodyguards he'd brought over at the last minute in case things got out of hand. "Honey." Seeing her husband's arrival, the lady's eyes were filled with joy. She went forward and hugged the middle-aged man and immediately began to complain to him. As he listened, the man's expressions became darker and angrier. Unexpectedly, she didn't exaggerate and instead told the middle-aged man exactly what had happened. She even told him that her sons had taken the initiative to bully the little girl. When the middle-aged man heard this, he frowned deeply. "This brat doesn't know what's good for him. My sons pushed his daughter, so what? But then her nanny yelled at them? Not only does this man not apologize for his actions, but he gets in my wife's face about it." The middle-aged man was furious. Hearing his words, Chase's eyes gradually became cold. Sure enough, they were not a family with admirable values and had to use the Rothmans to look good. Understanding this man's arrogant attitude now, Chase felt it would have been better to act recklessly with his status. It seemed like he would have to teach the other party a lesson today. Since the man was so proud of his status as a part shareholder of the mall, Chase felt it would be appropriate to defeat him in the place he was most proud of. When Chase thought of this, the corner of his mouth curled into a wicked smile. He looked at the middle-aged man and the lady with a burning gaze. The middle-aged man had his back facing Chase. He didn't know what Chase's expression was, but the lady could clearly see it. She scowled and pointed at Chase. "Watch out, you! See this man? This is my husband. He's on the board of directors of this mall. Other than the Rothman family, my husband is one of the top players in all of Fairfield. I really don't know what you are trying to do in front of us." With her husband Harvey's arrival, the lady's heart was filled with confidence. She looked at Chase with more and more contempt. Harvey turned around to look at Chase. He smiled when he saw him and said, "Hi there. I heard you know someone from the Rothman family. Perhaps it's Kai Rothman? Or I wonder if you know Zane Rothman." Harvey casually announced these two names to provoke Chase. Of course, he wasn't the only one who knew these two. However, these were the two he had the best relationship with. Hearing these names, Chase was surprised. He shook his head honestly and said, "No idea who they are." "Ha ha ha!" The lady burst into laughter when she heard this. Her expression was full of disdain. "I told you earlier that he was just pretending. This is North Fairfield. He doesn't know them? I really don't know what he's so proud of. Harvey, let's cut the crap. He took down some of the bodyguards and I don't know if you guys can handle him. So call the Rothmans over. Let's see if he can handle them." Although Chase didn't feel anything when Harvey announced the two names, the surrounding crowd burst into an uproar when they heard the woman's words. "Kai and Zane Rothman. They're the real giants of North Fairfield. I heard they're a big deal among the younger guys in the Rothman family. This guy is really finished." He said he also knows some Rothmans. But now that Mr. Wayman is gonna bring Kai and Zane out, I can't imagine he could turn the tables anymore. This guy should watch his mouth. The people looked at Chase with sympathy. Not many people thought highly of him. After Harvey appeared, a few people immediately turned their backs on him and went to Harvey's side. After all, no matter how one looked at it, Chase didn't look like he knew any of the Rothmans at all. Harvey shook his head after hearing the people speaking. "The head of the Rothman family is a man of great character. I won't bother him with this trivial matter. How could he stand up for someone like this? Is this kid that good? If my bodyguards can't deal with him, I'll call more. There's no one in Fairfield that Harvey Wayman can't deal with." Harvey's words were incomparably arrogant. As his voice faded, the bodyguards that he brought along also tightly protected his wife and boys behind them. They were afraid that Chase's sudden attack would threaten their safety. But what they didn't know was that at this time, Chase had no intention of attacking them. To him, attacking them in Fairfield was too shameful. He had over 100 ways he could hurt them with ease. Thinking of this, Chase smiled playfully, but it looked a little sinister to the observers. He looked at Harvey Wayman and said, "Since you don't want to trouble the head of the Rothman family, why don't you give me a chance? You want me to call some of the Rothmans over?" Everyone was dumbfounded when they heard his words. Could it be that this kid had lost his mind? Even Harvey, with his status, didn't want to trouble the Rothman family with this. Where did this guy get the confidence to think he could just call them up? Harvey sneered, crossed his arms, and said to Chase, "Sure. Great. Since you're so confident, go for it. I'll give you half an hour to call them. If they still haven't arrived after half an hour, then don't be upset at what happens to you next." Harvey's words seemed very relaxed. He wasn't threatened at all. Hearing Harvey's attitude, the lady immediately argued. She rolled her eyes at him and said impatiently, "What are you saying? Why would you ask him to call people? Why don't you just send the guards to get him?" Harvey whispered to her, "Sure, this gives him time. But doesn't it also give me time? The rest of my guards will be here soon. After half an hour, this guy will be a goner. Harvey grinned hideously, his eyes full of disdain towards Chase. Besides, do you really think he knows anyone from the Rothman family? If he can get even one of them to come over here today, I will give him my last name. Harvey didn't try to hide his last words. He let go of his voice and everyone there heard what he said. Many people laughed. They agreed with Harvey Wayman's words. He and his wife continued to insult Chase, which also made Celia and Brooke very unhappy. They told Chase, "Hurry up and call for people. Show them how powerful you are." He said he'd give you his last name. He is dreaming. Brooke clenched her small fist tightly, her face full of anger. Seeing her cute, fierce little appearance, Chase laughed out loud. Without responding to her, Chase directly dialed Isaiah Rothman's number. Since this Harvey wanted to play, Chase had to play big. He planned to call all the members of the Rothman family in Fairfield over, and then Harvey would really see what was going on. This kind of task was most suitable for Isaiah to handle. Although Isaiah's status in the family wasn't that high, he had a wide network and broad influence. When Isaiah heard Chase's request, he was stunned for a moment. However, with Chase's current power in the Rothman family, he didn't contest it. Soon, as the news of Isaiah's call spread out, all of Fairfield was stirred up. Over at the Rothman family manor. What? Chase was challenged at the Galleria? Who the hell has a death wish? Damn it. How can we let our heir be insulted like this? He wants to go straight to the Galleria. Let's go. Yeah, let's see who this brave person is who dares to speak rudely to our leader. Don't tell me it's someone from one of the other main families. Who cares which family he is from? Don't forget, this is Fairfield. This is our territory. One after another, shouts could be heard from the house. These juniors of the Rothman family had been in high spirits the past few days. Under Chase's influence, they were all bursting with confidence. Just as they were worrying about not having a place to get out some of their aggression, they heard that Chase had been messed with. All of them shouted and ran out of the manor. Numerous cars roared and rushed out, causing many of the older members of the Rothman family to wonder what was going on. What had gotten into these young men now? Back at the mall, Harvey was still standing with a proud expression on his face. It had been 20 minutes since he gave Chase an opportunity to make some calls. His bodyguards were everywhere. This was his home base. The surrounding crowd had been driven far away by the bodyguards. There were around 50 to 60 of them, which made everyone nearby feel a great sense of oppression. Harvey felt a sense of superiority. With this kind of lineup, he didn't believe Chase could handle any of them. However, he was disappointed to find that Chase, Celia, and some of the others had found a sofa and sat down. They chatted from time to time and even let out bursts of laughter. It seemed like they were not afraid at all. Harvey's wife snorted and muttered, "Calm down, just keep your cool. There are only 10 minutes to go. Honey, I want you to get him to kneel in front of me when this is all over. Make him ask for forgiveness in front of everyone." "No problem," Harvey agreed without even thinking. "And I want to slap that little girl a few times. If it wasn't for her, none of this would be happening. What a bunch of ignorant fools. I really don't know where their confidence lies," she added. At this moment, the time was getting closer and closer, and the surrounding crowd was getting bigger and bigger. The Galleria was huge, and now there were at least 100 people surrounding the play area. Each and every one of them was asking what was going on.